So we got about 5 minutes left before the CONCACAF Champions Cup final between Cruz Azul and the Vancouver Whitecaps is finished. And normally I don't start a review until the full-time whistle is blown, but in this case, we might as well just get in to talk about what we saw in this game, which is just, I'm just speechless in terms of what I just saw in this game. This is, to say that this is an embarrassment and to say that free space is a disappointment that happened again in MLS teams in the CONCACAF Champions Cup is an understatement. I mean, this was just a combination of Cruz Azul definitely playing one of the better game in recent memory, and the Vancouver Whitecaps probably played the worst game in recent memory as well, combining each other. And I would have never thought that I would also see another 5-0 thrashing as I saw in the Champions League final between PSG and Inter Milan, because it feels like this game very mirrors the game between PSG and Inter Milan. Inter Milan was completely not ready against PSG, while PSG was pretty much put on a masterclass throughout this entire game. And it feels like in this one, it was very similar. Vancouver was definitely not ready from minute one, and Cruz Azul was definitely ready for this game. They were ready for the occasion, and next thing you know, this game just got completely out of hand. And I think it's also safe to say that this game was over pretty much by minute one, not just when this game was already 4-0 in favor of Cruz Azul. Now, in the first half, the first shot of the game did see Rotondi hits it right to Takaoka. Cruz Azul definitely had most of the possession. Vancouver was kind of staying compact early, and I thought when I saw that, that was kind of typical. We usually see MLS team when they face against Liga MX's opponent down in Mexico. They're gonna stay compact a little bit, trying to grow into this game and maybe absorb some pressure. What I definitely did not expect is that the Whitecaps are going to stay compact early and then started to make some defensive mistake that I don't see this Whitecaps team have made at all this season. And it started off in the 8th minute of this game when Rivero would score to give Cruz Azul a 1-0 lead. It came off of a bad turnover from the Whitecaps, and they were immediately punished because of it. And this wouldn't be the last time we would talk about this. This would be a pretty big theme throughout this game, where the Whitecaps again committing big big turnovers in their own box that they shouldn't be, and they were immediately punished because of a rocket of a shot from Rivero. But I also thought that at this point, I thought this was a familiar position that the Whitecaps found themselves. And in many ways, if you're a Whitecaps fan, you're just thinking that, well, we got Cruz Azul where we want them. We are going to try to get ourselves into this game. I mean, this game kind of all at first kind of maybe reminds me of the Rayados game that we saw a couple rounds ago, where the Whitecaps went down 1-0 relatively quickly. It feels like the skies were falling for them, but they grew into this game, eventually score a goal in the second half, and then eventually score another to eventually move on into the next round. So I thought, well, this feels like it could be familiar, but the question is, can they get themselves into this game? Because it's one thing to do it in the last couple of rounds, but it's another do it in a final like this, because coming out of the gate they have started very flat out of the gate. They didn't do anything for out the beginning of this game, and little did we know that that would kind of stay firm, because in the 20th minute, after Rodriguez puts it wide from close range, as the shots were still only 2-0, 26 minutes in, but it was pretty much Cruz Azul just kind of feeling the game itself, where the Whitecaps just pretty much aren't able to get the ball, and that Cruz Azul were kind of playing keep away. In the 28th minute, Cruz Azul would make it 2-0, as Valley would score to make it 2-0 in favor of Cruz Azul. It just came off another bad turnover from Vancouver, and once again, they were punished because of that bad giveaway in this one. And yeah, when I saw that one it went in, I'm immediately thinking, oh boy, this feels like it's free space disappointment, isn't it? And I know that Vancouver has had some incredible comeback, as they have overcome a lot of adversity throughout out this run to the final, but you just kind of had a sense that this was a bridge too far to climb, especially now find yourself 2-0 down in the crowd, or going absolutely nuts down in Mexico City, and it seems like it's free space disappointment again for MLS team. And little did I know that, not only the fact that is the case, but that was just the beginning of the humiliation So there was a shout for a penalty for Cruz Azul fans not given, and then in the 37th minute, Sepulveda, the top goal scored in this competition, he scored from Rotondi to make it 3-0 in favor of Cruz Azul. And I even immediately wrote, this feels like it's a shade of the Champions League final between PSG and Inter Milan. And in this case, Cruz Azul is basically PSG, and Inter Milan basically is the Vancouver Whitecaps. And you know things are bad when the Ole chants already rain down. Like usually the Ole chant doesn't rain down until the second half, but man, the Ole chant was definitely raining out in the first half, and you just kind of feel like it's just add insult to injuries for the Whitecaps. And then in the 48th fourth minute, Cruz Azul will make it 4-0 as Mateus Bogusz, the former LAFC man, scored here to make it 4-0 in favor of Cruz Azul. And I wouldn't blame any Whitecaps fan decide to turn off the TV, or even any MLS fans that were rooting for Whitecaps very hard in this one immediately turn off their TV, because yeah, if it wasn't over before, it's pretty much over, as we head to halftime with the score being 4-0. And I think if there's maybe just one thing that is a little different between this humiliation to the one that PSG did against Inter Milan in the Champions League final, at least that game was still 2-0. At least that one, maybe Inter Milan can get a goal back and maybe things would be different. Yeah, this was pretty much all already over. So we go to the second half, and by the way, for majority of the second half, the commentator team, John Strong and Stu Holding, it was almost like they were just kind of talking in a way where you usually see like a funeral that was happening, because it just kind of feel like it's a funeral right now for the Vancouver Whitecaps with the things that it is. So I will kind of get to talk about some of the things that mentioned that I kind of find myself kind of baffled that they mentioned that, but in the second half, Lira would put it way wide from long range, and in the 51st minute, the fifth happened. As Sepulveda would score again here from Sanchez to make it 5-0 in favor of Cruz Azul. And I also wrote, we might not be done in terms of goals as well, because, yeah, right now, this is a Whitecaps team that not only has not showed up whatsoever, but this is now going down to be probably the darkest day for Vancouver and MLS in the battle for Liga MX versus MLS supremacy, like I said earlier before. I mean, who would have thought that the Vancouver Whitecaps, the biggest game in their club history by far, and this of course happened, and they not only lay down an egg, but it's going to go down as one of the biggest humiliation that this club has ever suffered in club history. In fact, the shots were 11-0 for Cruz Azul up to this point. By the way, for the majority of the second half, I didn't really take too much notes, because there's really isn't any notes to kind of take throughout the remaining part of the second half. There's really no technical notes that I have to take, because this game is kind of way out of hand. So then this is when I kind of maybe take some notes in terms of what the commentators were talking about. And one of the things that I want to mention is the fact that John Shaw mentioned the fact that the scheduling of this final, and how maybe it was a little unfair to the Vancouver Whitecaps. Though I said it was kind of a weird rambling that he made, because he basically saying that Liga MX team gets a 2 week rest before this one. Obviously, Cruz Azul got eliminated in the semifinal in the Liga, so they get a little bit rest coming into this game compared to the Whitecaps, who has to deal with league play. And I will say that going back to what I said, I think I said this when I was talking about the preview in the game, when I previewing the game between Vancouver versus Minnesota. I have no idea why MLS decided not to postpone that game to another day. We've seen before where MLS team, when they're prepared for the CONCACAF Champions Cup final, that the league is going to give some of these teams a benefit to have a full week rest. We saw it with LAFC when they got a full week rest before that final against Leon. So I have no idea why this is not the same case for the Vancouver Whitecaps. I mean, I just feel like that game on Wednesday. Not only the fact that they have less time to prepare for this game, and it's important that they have time to prepare for this game, because playing in Vancouver is a complete different animal than playing in Mexico City. It's not just the altitude that, of course, is a problem, but it's just also so just dealing with being in an unfamiliar territory. Even though I know that they've been in the stadium before earlier, but this is completely different in a way where it is a final, and that you're once again dealing with a situation where you have to deal with altitude, and also just deal with a short rest as well coming into this one. Yes, I think that might be a thing that could be talked about, and maybe MLS kind of didn't help themselves by decided to schedule these games in such a quick amount of time. And maybe this is also where you could also say that, compared to the earlier matchup where Vancouver, I know they also have played a lot of games, but the old saying, when you play so many games, eventually things are going to take a toll on your team, and I think this is kind of the same case you're seeing with the Vancouver Whitecaps. Maybe the toll has finally took them, because this team has been pretty much playing 3 games in 7 days almost every single week since the beginning of the season. Though what is kind of weird about this rambling is the fact that when didn't we say before, where when teams are in mid-season form and versus teams that are kind of in a rusty mode, that usually that's in favor of teams that is in mid-season form. I mean, in this case, this feels like it's played perfectly to MLS, basically playing a lot of games and are in competitive edge, whereas for the Azul, they have to get a couple of weeks of rest, which that could make a difference in terms of whether or not they're going to be rusty coming into this one. So yeah, just kind of a weird rambling overall in terms of it. They also mentioned about the final that we saw between the Sounders and Pumas, and how Pumas kind of complained about the final between those two, like being played in a quick amount of time, even though they were still in the mix of battling for Ligia. Either way, you can clearly see this was kind of a time where the play-by-play commentary just try every way to burn some times for the remaining of this game, because it was pretty much garbage time. That's what we see in the entire part of the second half. Yakimakis then have a shot that was saved off the line after Taco gave it away. They did mention the fact that Yakimakis has really struggled in Liga MX. Do not be surprised if there's going to be some MLS team that is looking to get him, and especially a certain team called Atlanta United might be thinking about getting him. I mean, I know Atlanta has already spent a lot of money in terms of the attack, but that amount of money that they spent on the attack has not worked whatsoever. So maybe they might call their old friend Yakimakis back, because before he left Cruz Azul, he was a player that was not only in form with Atlanta United, but was the answer to the replacement that they lost Joseph Martinez a couple of years ago. But yeah, that moment also kind of sums up Vancouver night, because it kind of came off a bad giveaway from Taco Oka. Varela then puts it wide from long range before Pavelli puts one high on the free kick. This is also kind of the time when Stu Holding started to kind of saying that I'm trying not to make excuses about the Whitecaps, but then he proceeded to kind of make some excuses about the Whitecaps, about not having Berhalter in this game, that might, and not having the best player in the game might have hurt the Whitecaps' chance. And coming out of this game, I know there's going to be that question: if they had Berhalter in this one, would it have made a difference? Absolutely not. Would they have If they have Ryan Gaul in this game, would it made a difference? Maybe, but I still think absolutely not in terms of the difference. I mean, yes, those are two really key players for this Vancouver Whitecaps team, but in a 5-0 game like this, I think this goes more than just missing your two key players. This goes more in terms of the fact that I'm just shocked of how unprepared this team is, with how good of a season that is. And even I mentioned a couple of times that this team looked like an absolute wagon. I don't know what happened in this game for the Whitecaps. I don't think they got poisoned like they did like what the Columbus Crew did a couple of seasons back in the CONCACAF Champions Cup final. Well, actually, I say a couple of seasons back, but this actually happened last season. So because they also mentioned that they actually bring in their own chef to prepare for the food coming into this game. So yeah, like I said, this is just something that I don't think we saw this coming in terms of how one sided this game turns out to be. Yakimakis then puts it wide from close range, and that was pretty much the only other notes that I put here in this one. I didn't put the stats in this one because I'll wait to see how the stats is, and yeah, the stats is pretty much as ugly as it get. In fact, the Vancouver Whitecaps failed to register a single shot in this entire game. I think this is the first time ever we have seen an MLS team fail to register a single shot in a CONCACAF Champions competition, let alone the final itself, because the final shot total 16 shots compared to none that Vancouver has. 8 shots on goal compared to none that the Whitecaps had. 4 shots that was blocked compared to none that the Whitecaps have. They didn't give me the possession stats, at least on the league website, but I think the possession was pretty much heavily in favor of Cruz Azul in this one. I mean, this was just a one-way traffic final, something that nobody saw coming. And you just wonder now that moving forward for this, how will the Vancouver Whitecaps respond now that they're back in league play? Because we've seen before how when teams have a great CONCACAF Champions Cup run and how once they exit that CONCACAF Champions Cup run, mostly in the disappointing way, it can really affect them and can take a toll on them, where they're just not really the same for the rest of the season. Now, the good news for the Whitecaps is that they build up themselves up such a big lead when it comes to where they are in the standings. They're in a very good position right now in the standings. But you just wonder how this loss will really affect this team going forward. I think they actually do have a couple of weeks before they go back to league play. I mean, let me just check the Whitecaps schedule real quick. No, they actually have to play this against the Seattle Sounders in the next game, and they're also going to be missing a lot of players due to international duties. So yeah, that's kind of a double whammy. The fact that the Whitecaps have to jump back into to league play and have to do it during the international break when they're going to be missing a lot of players because of call up to the Canadian national team. But I just wonder when you look at how the Whitecaps are going to be for the remaining part of the month. Which the good news for the Whitecaps is that they're at least going to get some rest. I mean, this team desperately needs some rest after being play 3 games in 7 days, pretty much since the beginning of March. But has the damage been done to this team where they could go for a bad run of form, or the fact that can they pick themselves up? I'm leaning toward the latter. I think this is just a one of those nights where it's a combination of Cruz Azul really being up for it, and this is probably one of the best that Cruz Azul have played, and a combination of the Whitecaps playing their worst game of the season, and also probably one of the worst games they've ever had in franchise history. I mean, there's been some humiliating losses that I've seen the Vancouver Whitecaps suffer. This is going to go up as one of the worst one, and it just sucks the fact that it happened literally in the biggest game in club history. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of me doing this review of the CONCACAF Champions Cup final. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this review, and what do you think of just an absolute disaster class in an MLS perspective, and just humiliation that we saw in this one, because I'm pretty sure Liga MX fans are going to take shots at this one, and rightfully so. I mean, they're gonna get the bragging rights tonight, and they're gonna definitely be taking a lot of shots at this one as another moment of how MLS clearly doesn't seem like they closed the gap on Liga MX at all whatsoever. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure to leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.